Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, quick picks video for UFC Des Moines, Sandhagen taking on Figueiredo in the main event. And as always, I'm going to break down the entire card in 20 minutes or less using my confident level traffic light system, just so that you understand the level of confidence I have in each individual pick. And if you haven't already and you're enjoying the short form content over here on the Ground and Pound podcast, hit that like and subscribe button, and let's recap last week. So last week, as you can see, we went 10 and 14 on total picks overall. Not a bad card, honestly, not bad in terms of our picks. Our confident level picks went 5 and 1, which is the green. Our medium in the amber or orange, it went 2 and 1. And our not confident picks actually ended up coming out on top, where they went 3 and 2 overall. So 10 and 14, I was pretty happy with that, but hopefully we can do even better this week. And let's get right into the picks without further ado. So first up, we have Juliana Miller taking on Ivana Petrović. And in this one, I'm going to go with Ivana Petrović. This is really just dog shit taking on horse shit, if I'm being really honest. I think Petrović is going to be able to look for the takedowns here. Miller is pretty decent off of her back. She doesn't have very good striking. I honestly think here Petrović is just going to get the takedowns and kind of lay on top here, maybe land some ground and pound. I think on the feet, Ivana Petrović is probably the better striker here. So I'm taking dog shit to beat horse shit in this particular matchup. And next up, we have Thomas Petersen taking on Don'Tale Mayes. And we've seen in the past, Don'Tale Mayes, the secret to beating him is pretty much being able to go for the wrestling, get takedowns in his fights. He seems to struggle once you put him on his back. And Thomas Petersen, that's exactly what he looks to do in most of his matchups. Petersen is a little bit undersized for heavyweight, and Don'Tale Mayes is 6'6", pretty powerful, big, stocky dude. So he can land. I do think that Thomas Petersen does have a respectable chin here. I do think he's going to shoot for takedowns and ultimately get those takedowns. Because Petersen is undersized and it is heavyweight, it can be a little bit tricky. Not necessarily a confident pick here in Petersen to get it done, but I do think he mixes in the wrestling to ultimately get a pretty clear decision here and wear Mayes out with his wrestling. And next up, we have Quang Lee taking on Gaston Bolaños. And I was pretty impressed with Lee in his fight against Chris Gutierrez, who we just saw this weekend. Lee was able to get the takedowns in that particular matchup and ride out top control and win rounds with his wrestling. Ultimately, he did lose that decision, and I think a guy like Bolaños here, the striking is going to be too much. I think if Bolaños can defend the takedowns from Lee and keep this fight on the feet, his heavy Muay Thai style and his spinning elbows and his nice kicks, I think will be all the difference in this particular matchup. I trust Bolaños' striking here to get it done in this particular matchup as a medium confidence level pick here. I do think that Lee would be best served mixing in the takedowns, and we have seen Bolaños taken down and held down in the past. I do think Bolaños is susceptible to being taken down and held down, but I think ultimately the damage is going to be on the Bolaños side here, and the striking upside is going to be on the Bolaños side here to get it done as a medium confidence pick here in our quick picks video. And next up, we have Jillian Roberts taking on Marina Rodriguez. And I'm going to go with Jillian Roberts here. We've seen now with Rodriguez that, the secret's pretty much it's pretty much out. We know exactly what we're going to get from Marina Rodriguez. She's going to move forward, Muay Thai style, mostly a striker, but she has been susceptible to takedowns, and that's pretty similar in a lot of these matchups on this card. And we know exactly what to expect from Jillian Roberts. She's going to look for the takedown. She's got fantastic BJJ. She's able to control women on the ground and pretty much either find the ground and pound victory or TKO on the ground or find the submission, and she flows from position to position nicely. Doesn't necessarily have the best wrestling to get fights to the ground, but with Marina Rodriguez, it's not taking much to get her to the ground. If you leave a window open and a small breeze kind of comes into the room, you know that Marina Rodriguez is going to get taken down and blown down. So I don't think it's going to take much for Jillian Robertson to get this fight to the ground and ultimately find a finish on the ground or ride out all 3 rounds of top control here as a medium confidence level pick. And it is a shame. We have seen a lot from Marina Rodriguez. She was a high level striker, a high level woman in this division, but I think her time has passed now. I believe she's 38 years old. I think the new breed is coming in, and I think Jillian Roberts is her time to shine here in this particular matchup. And next up, we have Ryan Loder taking on Azamat Bekoev. And Bekoev, he tends to load up on a lot of his shots. Obviously, 19-3, wrestler, boxer style. One of the things that I noticed in this particular matchup is that Bekoev is actually a pretty heavy favorite against Ryan Loder. And Ryan Loder was the Ultimate Fighter winner. He's a Division I All-American wrestler, very high-level credentialed wrestler, and I'm actually going to pick Ryan Loder here. I like his wrestling. I think he's going to be able to time entries against Azamat here. I think Azamat likes to throw the hooks. He likes to land overhands and tight hooks. I think when he throws, he tends to load up and kind of telegraph his shots. I think that's going to be all that Loder's going to need to be able to get him down and get in on those legs, get in on those hips, and ride him out for a decision here. And I think Loder shouldn't be this big of an underdog. So give me Ryan Loder in a fairly non-confident level pick, but I just don't see a way that he should be this big of an underdog against a guy, who he definitely could take down when he loads up on shots. So I do like Ryan Loder in this particular matchup, and I think people are looking far too much into the Azamat knockout of Zach Reese. Zach Reese hasn't been anything inside the UFC other than pathetic. So I think Azamat here gets it done. I think Ryan Loder here gets it done, and I think people are looking far too much into the Bekoev victory over Zach Reese here. And next up, we have Yana Santos taking on Miesha Tate. And for the love of God, why have we got Miesha Tate back in the UFC? Why is she not retired and stayed retired, But I'm picking Yana Santos here. We know with Miesha Tate, she wants to look to get fights to the ground. She's got a definite discrepancy here in the striking against Santos. Santos has been taken down in the past, but she did look respectable in her last fight against Chelsea Chandler. I think Santos' striking is going to be that much better in this particular matchup. And it's pretty much just going to be striker grappler. And I trust Santos to keep this fight on the feet and ultimately win a decision here against Miesha Tate. I think Miesha Tate's going to shoot and reshoot. Even on failed attempts, she's going to shoot again. I think Santos is just going to work on that in her training camp for this fight and hopefully keep the fight on the feet. Hard to be confident because obviously we have seen Santos taken down in the past, and both of these women are coming towards the end of their career, so either one could fall off a cliff at any moment. Give me Santos here to keep it on the feet and win the striking exchanges. And next up, we have Jeremy Stevenson, the hardest hitting 145er. You know how it goes. Who the fuck is that guy? Against Mason Jones. And Mason Jones coming back after a layoff from the UFC as they cut him. And he's been dominating the regional scene. I think he's won 4 straight now with 3 finishes. He's looked pretty impressive over there in Cage Warriors. He's been able to mix in takedowns, land some great striking, great boxing, mixing in the kicks. And I think his wrestling's going to be the factor in this one here. Jeremy Stevens is only really on this card purely because he is from Des Moines, Iowa, which is where the card is being held. So he's obviously just a fan favorite, a hometown guy. And he's only really been working primarily on his boxing. He's been in bare knuckle. And I think he's going to load up on shots here, trying to, give the crowd what they want, load up on big shots. Mason Jones is going to come in, duck under those big shots and get the takedowns. I think he's going to ride out on top control here and ultimately maybe find a finish on the ground with ground and pound. So give me Mason Jones in a confident pick here to get it done against the old man, hardest hitting 145er that there is. And next up, we have Cameron Smotherman taking on Sidey. Sidey? That's a mouthful, but Sidey or whatever his name is. But give me Smotherman, man. I like Smotherman in this matchup. Sidey's not really done a whole lot inside the UFC that's really impressed me. He had a pretty terrible performance against Tavares, which was a split decision. He had another terrible performance against Garrett Armfield, which he was able to come out on top of, which again was another split decision. But he's just, he's been dropped in fights. And I think the athleticism and the hand speed of Smotherman's going to be too much for him here. I think generally speaking, the UFC public isn't very high on Smotherman. But I think his boxing and his hands are actually pretty nice. He's still very young, always improving, fighting out of Texas or from Texas. He loves to stand and bang, and he had a nice performance against Jake Hadley. And Jake Hadley's looked good since he went over to the PFL. I do like Smotherman in this particular matchup as a slight underdog. I think that he could definitely find the chin of Sidey, who's been mopped and dropped in a few of his fights now. I do think that Smotherman is the more athletic, quicker striker on the feet, and I like him here to get it done. I don't necessarily see a whole lot of grappling here going on, but give me Smotherman to win it on the feet and maybe get the knockout. And next up, we have Daniel Marcos taking on Montel Jackson. And we don't tend to see a whole lot of Montel Jackson, but people will remember his knockout, his very quick flash knockout of Damon Blackshear in his last fight, which is why I think he's the favorite in this particular matchup. And he can mix in the wrestling. He is pretty quick on the feet in terms of his hand speed. He does mix in takedowns, but we haven't necessarily seen him go long in fights. I think that's where Daniel Marcos is going to be able to take over. And Marcos has a great chin, great cardio, undefeated 17-0, and not just inside the UFC, but overall in his MMA career. And I think Montel's going to be live early. I think Marcos is going to fight on the outside and kind of have a lot of movement. And I think maybe even mix in a couple of takedowns or a couple of clinches just to wear on Jackson. And I like Marcos here to get it done. Not necessarily confident, because we have seen that the power of Jackson, kind of win him fights overall in his athleticism. But I just think Marcos can outlast Jackson on the feet over the course of 3 rounds. And I like the experience here of Marcos. I think he knows what he's doing. And he's also had that, confidence of being an undefeated 17-0 fighter. So give me Daniel Marcos here to get it done in a non-confident pick, though. And next up, we have Daniel Rodriguez taking on Santiago Ponzinibbio, and the battle of the old men at this point, both 38 years old. And really, this fight really just comes down to me is the volume. I think Daniel Rodriguez's volume on the feet is going to be all she wrote. I do expect both of these guys to have moments. I do expect both of them to land in exchanges. I would probably give the power edge a little bit to Ponzinibbio. He does tend to be a little bit low volume at times in comparison to Rodriguez. In both of Rodriguez's last fights, he's landed over 120 significant strikes. He does have good forward pressure, which I really like. I think that'll look good to the judges. I do think Ponzinibbio likes to counter, though, so Rodriguez will have to make sure he kind of keeps his guard up, keeps his hands up, because Ponzinibbio will look to counter. But I think that forward pressure and ultimately the volume is what's going to get Daniel Rodriguez the decision on the judges' scorecards here. And that brings us to our co-main event. We have Bo Nickal taking on Rinja Derrida, and I got to go with Bo Nickal here, as much as I don't really like Bo Nickal's game too much. Obviously a high-level credentialed wrestler in the college ranks, and Derrida obviously likes to get fights to the ground, great submission artist, but leaves his chin high up in the air when it comes to the striking. And I do believe that Derrida can, get a takedown maybe here. I don't know if Bo's going to welcome the grappling too much, but I think if Bo Nickal decides that he wants to come in here, he wants to wrestle, that he can pretty much have his way with Derrida. I don't necessarily see Bo getting submitted here. I think he's going to be able to stay safe. That's exactly what his high-level wrestling is going to be used for. I think on the feet, he's going to be able to touch up Derrida if he lets his hands go. He is the more athletic, quick striker on the feet. Not that either of these guys have polished striking whatsoever, but I think on the upside of the striking's got to be on the Bo Nickal side. I think the wrestling's going to be on his side, and overall, I'm going to pick him here as a confident favorite in Bo Nickal to get it done either with the wrestling or with the striking. And that brings us to our main event, and we have Cory Sandhagen taking on Deiveson Figueiredo, and I got to go with Cory Sandhagen, man. I think this is a very nice stylistic matchup for him here. Deiveson Figueiredo, 5'5", moving up in weight class, and he has looked good since moving up to this weight class, but Cory Sandhagen, 5'11", huge reach advantage in this matchup. I think Figueiredo is going to have to try to wrestle, but I actually think Cory's probably got the better wrestling out of the two. I think Sandhagen's probably the better striker on the feet. I think he's going to be able to mix it in here and ultimately find the decision or a late finish on Figueiredo. And the only way I really see Figueiredo winning this fight is either he finds some sort of submission through a scramble or letting his hands go and finding some sort of knockout. But I like Cory Sandhagen in this matchup. I think he could win this fight wherever it goes. I think he's the more student of the game. And I think ultimately, I think he gets it done here either on the ground or on the feet. And that brings us all the way through the card. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, 20 minutes or less. And just so you guys know, coming up, we have the PFL full card breakdown coming out tomorrow with Carlos and I. It is the light heavyweights and the heavyweights this week, so keep an eye out for that on the channel. And also we have the full card breakdown, the more detailed, in-depth breakdown that Carlos and I do. That is also coming out tomorrow as well. So if you're enjoying all the content on the channel, keep an eye out for those upcoming videos. We also have Best Bets videos coming out on Friday. Hit that like and subscribe button, people, and I can slow down my talking. Peace.